Welcome now to Saints in the Shadows. Hear the stories of the saints, learn about things you never knew. See if you can figure out who the saint is before the end.
Well, everybody, good luck on this one. Saints in the Shadows, the man on the side of the road. He turned away from it all. That's where this story begins. Not with war, not with trial, not even with a command from an emperor, but with a decision. He had position, responsibility, a future that by every measure should have been enough. He served in the church. He was ordained, respected, trusted. And then he left. Now, if you think you understand the kind of story, you might already be forming a picture: a man disillusioned, a quiet retreat, a life of isolation, somewhere far from the noise of responsibility. Perhaps a monk in a distant desert, a scholar hidden among books. And if that's the image that you see, if that's the one that's forming up in your mind right now, you're wrong. Because he did not disappear into silence. He stepped into something far more unpredictable: a road. Specifically, the road, the great road that ran along the Rhine River, where traders traveled, soldiers marched, and strangers passed each other without a second thought. And that's where he stopped. Not in a city of influence, not in a monastery of fame, but on the edge of movement itself, where lives crossed briefly before moving on. For tonight, for right now, we will simply call him the man on the side of the road. And unless you've spent a lot of time in the margins of history, you probably haven't heard of him before. Not like Augustine, not like Benedict, not like Martin of Tours. Yes, that Martin, the soldier who cut his cloak in half and became a bishop, a man whose story echoes loudly through for centuries. No, this man, the man on the side of the road, lived not so very far from him, in the same broad sweep of a changing Christian world. So perhaps now you're thinking, this must be one of those towering figures too, a reformer, a leader, founder of something enduring. And quite frankly, if that's what you're thinking, you're wrong again, because this man did not build an institution first. He built a habit. He welcomed strangers. Now pause there, because that sounds small, almost forgettable, until you understand the road he chose. This was not a safe place of passing travelers and polite exchanges. This was a corridor of uncertainty: merchants with goods and thieves who wanted them, pilgrims with faith and opportunists who preyed on them. Roman influence fading, new powers rising, old order weakening. The road was not just a path, it was a risk. And this man chose to live right next to it, to meet whoever came, to feed them, house them, care for them, whether they deserved it or not. And over time, the quiet decision began to gather something around it: trust, reputation, even attention. Now, here's where you may think the story becomes familiar again. A holy man known for hospitality, a figure respected by all, a peaceable life rewarded with honor. And if that's where you think this goes, you're wrong. Because attention has a way of attracting suspicion. And suspicion always asks the same question: what's really going on here? A man living by the road, welcoming strangers, offering help freely, too freely, perhaps. Some said he was generous. Others wondered why. And wonder, left unchecked, turns to accusation. They said he was dishonest, that he helped travelers for gain, that his motives were not as pure as they appeared. In a world where trust was fragile, even kindness could be questioned. And so the whispers grew loud enough to reach authority. And when authority listens to whispers, it demands answers. Now imagine this moment. You've chosen a life of service. You've given away comfort, security, recognition. You've opened your doors to strangers again and again. And now those very actions are being used against you. You are called forward. You are accused, not of great crimes, but of something more insidious: false virtue, deception disguised as holiness. And here again, perhaps you expect the story to turn dramatic, a powerful defense, witnesses stepping forward, a brilliant unraveling of lies. And quite frankly, if that's what you're waiting for, you're wrong again. Because what follows is stranger than argument, stranger than proof, stranger than anything that fits neatly into expectation. The story goes that when he was called to answer for himself, he did not come empty-handed. He came carrying something, not documents, not testimony, but his cloak. And this is where the story stops behaving like a simple accusation and defense tale, because he needed to pray right there in the presence of those judging him, and there was no place prepared for it. No chapel, no altar, just the space in front of him. So he did something, well, unusual. He hung his cloak, but not on a hook, not on a branch, on nothing. Suspended, held as if by an unseen hand. And before them all, he knelt and prayed. Now, if you're listening for a neat explanation, if you're trying to resolve this into something tidy, something explainable, something you can set aside as exaggeration, you may be tempted to say that couldn't have happened. There must be more. There must be a different version. But the people who told the story didn't tell it to explain it. They told it to answer the accusation. Not with the argument, but with something else entirely. Because sometimes the question is not, is this possible, but what kind of life leads here? And whatever those who judged him expected, it wasn't that. The accusations fell away, not neatly, not formally, but inevitably, because the man they saw did not match the picture they had been given. Now, you might expect this to be the turning point: recognition, honor, perhaps elevation to a position of power, a figure finally acknowledged for what he truly was. And if that's what you were thinking, guess what? You're wrong again. Because this man did not leave the road. He did not trade hospitality for authority. He did not turn his story into status. He went back to the same place, the same travelers, the same open door, the same quiet, persistent choice to welcome, to care, to serve, day after day, year after year, until the life that once drew suspicion became something else, something remembered. Not because it was loud, not because it changed kingdoms, not because it reshaped doctrine, but because it stayed consistent, simple, unyielding in a different way. Now, centuries later, the road is still there. The empire that once watched has long since faded. The accusation has gone. The voices that question him are silent. But his name remains. Not among the most famous, not among the most studied, but among those whose lives ask a quieter question. What if holiness doesn't always look like grandeur? What if it looks like a door left open, a meal given freely, a stranger received without suspicion? You expected a theologian or a bishop or a figure standing at the center of history's great turning points. But you were wrong. Gore of Aquitaine, a man who stood not in the spotlight of power, but at the edge of the road, on the side of the road, you might say, and made that place holy. And so now you know the story of Saint Goar. Goar. So, all right. There's one you didn't know. There's a new one for you.
Yeah, never heard of that.
Yeah. He is definitely one of the lesser known ones. But so some interesting things about this, like it wasn't so. Some people say he hung his cloak on nothing. Other people say he hung his hat on sunshine. And so it's not uncommon to see him pictured like hanging something on a beam or a ray of sun. And there's some like folklore and legend that goes around that. And again, I don't know how much of it is true or not, but he was very much known as a very hospitable man who welcomed in people who just lived a life of quiet, calm hospitality. You're not going to find him in most books, if I'm really honest. I couldn't find him on one site that contained the word Lutheran, if I'm really honest. He lived in the 6th and 7th century, so he was older in the older generation. But yeah, so there you go. And in terms of meal and drink for the day, I've been having a little bit of fun. And look, everybody, I'm going to be frank with you. Like, I've been using some AI to create some imagery, and some of it's really cool. I created a whole little menu item called a Taste of St. Gore, hospitality on the Rhine. Well, people on the Rhine River are known for a particular type of wine, specifically a Riesling. And so if you're looking for a drink of the day, you can find one. There's one that is called the Ferryman, or we're calling it tonight the St. Gore Ferryman, which includes some Riesling, apple brandy, elderflower liqueur, lemon juice, honey, and a little dash of bitters. But honestly, if you just had a glass of Riesling wine, you'd probably be just as well off. In terms of meal choices, we have Rhine Valley pork with Riesling cream and apple cabbage, which I'll be honest is very much a German style meal, and it looks fantastic. I'm not going to read the full recipe, but I tell you what I will do. Whenever I get this particular episode of Saints in the Shadows out, I will try to put a link to my little menu thing that I made. So all
Nice.
right, there's the saint for the day. And I know it wasn't a known one, but again, we're getting to the point where we've kind of gone through a year. Actually, we're well
Yeah.
into the second year, and I'm running into the issue that, like, a lot of the people I've done already, and so I don't want to kind of do them again. So I'm just kind of letting them lie and going on with new ones, sometimes a little rare ones, like St. Gore. I hope
Yeah.
I'm pronouncing that right.
Never heard.
So
Never.
no. Well, and again, he's, there's so many big names all around it. Like, even so, he's July 6th. I don't think I ever mentioned that. That is his, dare I say, quote unquote, commemoration day, if you will. But again, he's not one of these where you get like a big feast day or something like that. Like, again, he's just one of the saints that you just remember on this day. And that's, kind of very much a saint in the shadows. And he's a little bit more entrenched than others in the shadows. But yeah. So again, very interesting story though. I found it fascinating. All right, so I can.
And so it ends. The light shines in the shadow. And now you know more about the story of one of the saints of history.